Brain death is kidnap. Ladies and gentlemen, we are into a rabbit hole now. Considering the times when I've looked at really weird things like Eratos on the internet, this is one of those things that's on par. It's a rabbit hole focusing on the medical industry and the potential of a giant overarching conspiracy on our side of the world regarding the harvesting of organs. Now, we've heard organ harvesting a fair bit, and I'll get to all of that a bit later, but today we have to start small. Now, if you go to a website by the name of styrowing.com, you're greeted with this webpage that immediately shouts out brain death is kidnap. Without abortion since 1916 in the United States and manufactured brain death, the world population would have topped 200 billion by now. This is why the elites save us by slaughtering us before and after we are born, and in return for saving us, we save them. Now, the claim over here is our organs are being harvested through the medical industry, through Big Pharma, and given to the elite out there. It's not a claim that's too hard to get behind. You know, considering the world we live in and how fractured we are, I can see people getting behind such a claim. But in order to do that, you need some pretty solid evidence. One of the first videos you come across is David Rockefeller gets 7th heart transplant at age 101. Now, of course, it leads you to a video by A Call for an Uprising, which is fine and dandy. It shows David Rockefeller, one of the biggest bankers in the world, well, one of the biggest, I mean, he's passed away, and it shows you that there is a link to an article, theusualroutine.com. Now, of course, clicking on the usual routine, we're usually taken to a website that would be a normal news link. Eat 2 bananas per day, month, happens, body. What happens? All right, that's just the URL link. It's actually the usual routine. Now, I'm not saying that this website isn't true and honest, but I'm not really getting a whole lot of David Rockefeller's nonsense. Of course, given the fact that we have things like Google nowadays, I'm pretty sure that we can easily debunk a claim. No, David did not get 7 heart transplants. He may have privately, but as far as public knowledge goes, he really doesn't have 7 heart transplants going on. Transplanting organs does take a fair bit of research, knowledge, and honestly some luck to do. But again, I want to stress the conspiracy isn't hard to get behind. Depopulation for dummies. Trump heads up femicide ring of 93 federal prosecutors. And of course, the further you go down and down and down and down, it really just comes out to look like it's some old 90s deep web-ish looking website all about the conspiracy of brain death. And this is where you can kind of sit away and say, I'll step away from this website. Don't do that just yet. Because the moment you right-click and click on something called View Page Source, the interesting thing about this is, would you look at that? It's a whole heap of information just randomly given out. Now, looking at the page source for this, it actually shows you much more than what you can visibly see. Now, just to give you a quick idea, all of the stuff that you're looking at right now, and I'll just scroll you to the very top of this real quick, everything past line 590 is what you can see on the page. So if you see head, body, and all this stuff, this is what you're seeing. So without abortion and manufactured brain death, this is the stuff that you are visibly seeing on the web page. But everything above, which is the majority of this page, is hidden information. See, this is stuff that you're not looking at, and it starts from brain death is kidnap, medical terrorism, murder begins with your own personal care physician, arrest Trump for femicide, and then you go down to the magic of hyperventilation, and it describes to you how hyperventilation is used to shut the individual down and trigger an artificial brain death state, which then they can use to say, hey, the person is dead, and then harvest their organs afterwards. So it's a lot to take in, but there's some key things to notice over here. Cerebral blood flow and hyperventilation, a lot of stuff is focused onto it. The use of oxygen and exceeding the amounts to cause this hyperventilation that, again, prevents you from being conscious, prevents you from actually going against and taking care of your organs that are going to be harvested from you. And then you go into things like human embryonic stem cells, animal testing. This is a whole rabbit hole to go down, and this isn't just one page on this website. You can go to multiple pages and come across this exact information. Now, who could create this website? Well, the person behind it is Ed, all right? Ed McWhirter is the person behind this entire deal. This is an individual who has worked as a cabbie for 40 years. And you can actually look down over here that there is Z-Trip Airport Specialist. Z-Trip is a company like Uber or like Lyft in this case, where you can do ride sharing. In fact, going to the webpage right over here, it's pretty much that same kind of deal for you. So again, he is a cabbie that has made this website to cover information. Why is this cabbie so interested in the brain death conspiracy? Well, this is where it gets a little dark. See, Ed's wife had actually passed away under medical care. She had appeared to be comatose, and eventually, once she had passed, Ed believed that there was a lot of discrepancies in that death. And after looking further into it, Ed is very convinced that because of the passing of his wife Rita in such a weird manner in his eyes, that her organs were harvested and passed on to the elite. She was given this brain death, which he believes to be artificial. Now, I'm going to look you over on all of this real quick. It's a long page, but I can paraphrase to you roughly what you're getting. Here he claims on 9/17/2017, the entire site here was hijacked by the big boys, where he references the FBI.gov in that hyperlink. All medical records destroyed. I re-uploaded just the records, but the more you go down, it's over here where he explains what happened directly to his wife. Note that Manin states that Rita's pupils are equal and reactive to light, which doesn't happen when comatose, let alone deeply comatose, which is what Rita was diagnosed with, and mentions Rita having pulmonary edema, for which she receives no treatment. Notice that Rita's ventilator is set to 18 BPM, using pure oxygen, which can cause extreme hyperventilation, which is enough to knock out a healthy elephant, let alone a healthy Rita. So Rita waking up in the ER and then having severe hiccups from more oxygen than she should take, which criminal Rana, which is one of the doctors that he accuses, refers to as myoclonic jerking, or deeply comatose. The only reason that extreme hyperventilation did not cause brain death was that Rita's fluid in the lungs was never treated. It was never given the neurology records, as they would show that the myoclonic jerking was never intermittent and diffuse, but forever continuous and in exact rhythm with the ventilator rate, except during CPAP, when all jerking stopped, when the vent rate was less than 8 BPM. Note that most of these doctors refer to a fabricated past history of IV drug abuse, manufactured only to support the notion of a 20111 drug overdose septic shock, and ARDS, which never happened as proven in records, in preparation for the tracheostomy, vocal cord bypass scam, which only, and of course he's blaming certain doctors over here, note that Manin can find records of Rita's admission, whereas criminals state, we cannot find that record in our portal. So there's clear discrepancies between multiple doctors, multiple hospital agencies, and he believes that there is a cover-up going on. Eventually, what has happened is, because of hyperventilation, extreme hyperventilation, and because of a multitude of factors, Rita had appeared to suffer from brain death, which at that point she had passed away, she had succumbed, and her organs were harvested and sold to the highest bidder. Now, after all this, Ed made a petition to the President of the United States, which at this point would be President Trump. And here he's claimed, since world bankers, the elite in this case, took control of the United States on 23 December 1913, the Rockefeller ilk have infiltrated the AMA and hospitals across America, which of late have been very deliberately murdering viable, even healthy, untreated patients at the rate of 1 patient in 5. So 1 in 5 are being killed, medically kidnapped, for organ donation money and to save hospitals money per bad insurance, or to just basically harvest organs out of 1 in 5 healthy individuals, make them disappear within the medical system, and just no recourse given after that. This is a class action lawsuit, and so far it only had 1 supporter, so whatever Ed wanted out of this was never met up to. If your relative was on life support, appeared comatose before plug was pulled, regained consciousness after plug was pulled, and tried to talk to you before the fatal morphine overdose that they would administer to you if you were given that brain death, because you couldn't even use your vocal cords, as they would prevent you from talking. If you were in any of those situations, then you join this class action lawsuit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's no doubt that Ed believes that the elite, in this case the Rockefeller family or the Rockefeller group, was complicit, involved in the loss of his wife and the harvesting of organs across the United States and potentially the rest of the world. If you look into the actual source of these web pages even further, you come across this one where it actually details you zip codes, cities, and counties. Now there's a bunch of these to flip through. A bunch of them mostly relegated to the eastern seaboard, northeast of the United States. You know, Pittsburgh, New York, areas like that. And the further you go down, the further you get into it, it actually gives you longitude, latitude situations, population histories of multiple major cities in the United States. And then it starts giving you actual company names. So here's companies that are apparently involved in this brain death conspiracy. And it ranges from companies that are in energy, industrial, retail consumer goods, education, law firms. It's a giant scope to cover, down to banks. Again, everyone in Ed's eyes are complicit. These are the companies that were involved in all of this. Whether you were involved in legally covering these hospitals, whether you were involved in handling money for any of these groups at any moment, or whether you were providing medical technologies, you were complicit in this scenario. Here you can view more page source, and you can come across things like the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, which is the NAACP. Of course, it gives you formation dates. Effectively, what they've done is they've downloaded the Wikipedia article on the NAACP, and I have no idea what the NAACP has to do necessarily with the brain death scenario, but again, reading into this, apparently there is some form of a connection. He's also connected it to religious organizations. Big organizations are all connected in somewhat. So it goes beyond the scope of your average hospitals to a few doctors, all the way up to banking organizations, medical organizations, religious organizations, civil rights organizations, and legal organizations. There is a lot of people apparently in this entire endeavor, and that's just the one thing that we're trying to hunt down. There are two YouTube channels associated with all of this. One is Pit Bird, and the other one is Edward's own YouTube channel. Edward has 5 subscribers and a lot of privacy stuff associated with all of his all of his channel. But you can see subscriptions over here. He's got, you know, Nomen, you've got ASAP Science, you've got Rage Against the Machine. And you've got the Joe Rogan Show as subscriptions to the entire deal. Now, I don't know how active it is because the last upload was 3 years ago. But going to Pitbird's channel, which has 119 subscribers right now, you have the concept of brain death, the 9/11 American medical fraud, depopulating useless eaters. And these are every 5 years ago. This is constantly updated with calling out individuals. Again, I have no relation to any of these people. I don't know about what's going on, but at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, this is something from 6-7 years ago, and they're constantly calling out these individuals. Here's Edward talking about "This is my country, save your own robotic life." I don't know if Pitbird is his channel or this is Edward's second channel, but whatever it is, these are two individuals or two groups, two nodes at this point who are creating content trying to expose doctors, medical professionals, whoever you want to call it, being complicit in the brain death scam. Another thing Ed has been doing is selling items on eBay. And these items have been kite-hit steel planes. True story behind Bush's bullshit. So there's a lot of political, sides to be taken. At the end of the day, Ed does sell things, kite planes on eBay as well too, for a whopping $911. I have no idea if that's reference to the 9/11 attacks. 911 is in the emergency number. Whatever it is, it's a near $1,000 plane that you're buying, a steel plane, if anything. I have no idea where the steel is involved over here, but you know, if I was drunk enough, maybe that would appear to be a UFO. I'm not sure. I don't know how to end this video off. In the beginning, I said that there's no good ending. You know, there really isn't. Ed is a person that has lost his wife. You know, it reminds me a lot of Tom Nelson to begin with. But ladies and gentlemen, one thing that I can say is medical kidnapping and organ trade is real. Okay, ladies and gentlemen? Just 2 quick examples. If you look into the Chinese government, it's very well documented that there's a $1 billion organ harvesting market in there right now and present. If you're in China and you're detained, or you're in the prison system, or God forbid you're a minority like the Falun Gong or the Muslims, your organs can in fact be harvested by the government of China. And at that point, they can be sold in a market to the highest bidder. It's a billion-dollar market that exists. It's one of the biggest violations of human rights out there. And the fact that the Chinese government can get away with it just shows you that the more power exists within that government, within that structure, again, being one of the biggest countries in the world, getting away with something like that just shows you that these conspiracies aren't something that only people who wear tinfoil hats are behind. It's something that's very real and very scary. You know, if you look at the concept of body brokers, which is an actual business, which is an actual an occupation. These are people who go out of their way to find grieving families. Vultures is what I like to call them. Give them a pittance, you know, people who can't afford a funeral for their loved ones. Give them a very pittance, you know, pay for a cremation, pay for even a burial. Cremation usually. And in that case, they sign away willingly because they don't have any other option to give their organs, the loved one's organs, healthy organs away to these vulture body brokers who then take these organs to medical research grants, take them to private bidders and make an absolute killing on individuals just as middlemen in the organ market. Organ trade is real and it's incredibly scary. Now, am I going to sit here and 100% side with Ed? No, because like I said, with conspiracies, you have to prove these things without a shadow of a doubt in order to sit behind it. But medical kidnapping, organ trade is a real industry. They're real. They're big. Lots of exposés have been made. Lots of documentaries have been done. This is a real market. Now, Ed believes that this happened to him. Ed believes federal agencies, law enforcement federal agencies, medical agencies, law agencies, banking firms are involved in all of this. Now, of course, is the scope that big? No, I think it's far narrow. Are the people he's specifically calling out necessarily behind it? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing that I can't agree with Ed on is that there is something shady going on. There are people every year who die with brain death, die of mysterious causes in a hospital, and overnight their organs are taken away and given again to the highest bidder. I don't disagree with this conspiracy at all. I'm one of those conspiracy theorists that believe wholeheartedly that if there's money involved, there's a shady conspiracy. I don't believe in flat earth because what's the money in it? I don't believe in reptilians because again, what's the money in it? But things like the organ trade, oh yeah, there's big money involved in this, and that's why there's also a big conspiracy. But are these specific entities like the Rockefellers or specific firms that Ed has mentioned truly complicit? There's no evidence to it. But there is the reality that there is the shady aspect of illegal organ harvesting in the medical system that does exist in our world, ladies and gentlemen. The more and more you look down this rabbit hole, the sadder it becomes, and the weirder it does become, looking just how depraved this market is. But, you know, there is a silver lining. I hope one day Ed gets the justice that he seeks. Ed gets the answers that he wants, whether they be the answers he seeks or he doesn't. I hope Ed gets what he wants because Ed deserves the truth. Ed deserves all the answers that he can seek so that he can finally come to closure with all of this. But what I also want out of this is for this dirty, depraved industry to be as exposed as it can be. Organ harvesting is real and it's fucking scary. And I hope at some point, even though it can't come to a close, the people that get away with it so easily hopefully get put behind some form of a fucking bar. I don't know. That's all I really want out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. This was a Styroing rabbit hole. And boy, what a rabbit hole it was. I am out.